G'day guys, welcome back to another week of the NRL Supercoach Talk Draft Waiver Wire podcast for the round 3 edition. It's hard to believe that we're already 2 full weeks into the draft season, and it's me sitting here, Simon, by myself. No Chris. He's out on a cruise somewhere, getting some sun for that freckly skinned face of his, and mate, if I was him after the flogging I gave him last week in draft, then I'd be hiding too, mate, because he got absolutely pumped, and I'm absolutely loving it. G'day guys, welcome back to another week of the NRL SC Talk Draft Waiver Wire podcast. It's the round 3 edition this week for the waiver wire in draft leagues. It's pretty hard to believe that we're already 3 weeks into the Supercoach season, and we're ready to break down some of the waiver wire targets for this week. As you can probably tell just by the sound quality, it's me, Simon, sitting here by myself doing it solo this week. Chris and I versed each other in Supercoach this week, and I gave him a bit of a touch-up, so I'm pretty happy with myself. And he's off out in the Pacific Ocean somewhere on a cruise, just licking his wounds. He's not brave enough to face me, and I wouldn't be either. After my boy TPJ and Sammy Bird just put a bit of a score on him, so he'll be back next week so he can face the music. But as for now, it's just me by myself running through some waiver wire targets for draft leagues this week. So yeah, I really do apologise for you guys having to sit and listen to my voice just sort of ramble on for all this time. So I'll try and get to things pretty quickly and try and touch on a couple of important topics. Just before we start off, though, I probably should have touched on this a bit more last week, and that's the fact that we're now being listened to through the NRL SC Talk Classic podcast feed. Wennon and Nick have been really kind to have the draft podcast flow through this feed as well this year. So I appreciate everyone listening on the NRL SC Talk feed. Hopefully we're just trying to get a bit more interest in draft. I can certainly tell after being with the SC Talk boys now for, I think it's 5, maybe 6 years, the interest in draft leagues has really grown over that time, and just the amount of questions that come in about drafts this time, and so many new players coming to draft and giving it a go. It's really good to see. So we've tried a couple of times before to get me, or Chris and I, both through the classic feed, but just a few technical problems have kind of gotten in the way over the years. But we're giving it a go this week. It's always very difficult being a draft podcast, given that team lists come out on a Tuesday, and then obviously waivers run 4 a.m. on a Wednesday. So we kind of got to get the podcasts out pretty quick and try and get them uploaded quick enough so everyone can obviously have a little bit of a listen and get their claims in before bed. So hopefully I get this up in time. If not, I apologise. It's really tough to try and do. Everyone's got work commitments and that sort of thing. So we always do our best, and just at the end of the day, we're here just to help you guys out, try and pick up a few waiver wire gems. So with that being said, I think I'll probably just run through the teams a little bit, I guess a bit blasé, more so than usual. I won't go into too many ins and outs, only ones that are super duper important, and some guys that I think are probably worth either putting on your watch list or putting a bit of a claim in your draft league. But I'll kick it off first with the Dragons and Broncos, which is the Thursday night match this week. Really, the big news here is the fact that David Fifita is locked down an 80-minute role, it seems, based off of last week with Jaden Sewer going through the front row. So I know Matt Lodge is due back pretty soon next week, but I think David Fifita showed you enough that if for some reason your league has got him out there on waivers, if you're in an 8-team league or something like that, he's well and truly worth a claim for mine. But other than that, I think most of the Broncos players that are likely to be mentioned are all going to be owned in the majority of draft leagues. As for the Dragons, I was a bit harsh on Blake Laurie last week. I kind of just went a bit hard on the fact that I didn't think he had the body shape to be a big minute player and whatnot. But he was even mentioned on the commentary the other night, and then they said, he's got a really big motor and he's working on his physique, but that motor is there. He's a bit of a Fafita type from all I hear, so probably been a bit harsh on him. I probably don't really rate him as a waiver wire pickup, but if he gets through to free agency tomorrow morning, I think he's probably well worth a look at, just because he got the 55 points in base, and just while Frizzell's still out with his ruptured nut, I think Blake Laurie's probably worth a start in your front row. Other than that, though, I mean, Tim Laffey is a big name, but he's sort of been someone in Supercoach circles that's really quite polarising. Obviously had the huge score the other week, and he's kind of got that persona of having big years when it's a contract year for him, and it's not a contract year this year, but he looked really, really good last week against South, and it was kind of a combination of him looking really good, but also Inglis just looking completely washed up, which was pretty sad to see. I think for the majority of rugby league supporters to see Inglis play like that and get humbled like that. But in terms of Laffey, he's a real confidence player, and what I really liked by watching that match was the fact that Corey Norman was just giving Laffey a really, really early ball and just saying, here you go, mate, just do what you need. Because he can beat people on the inside. You can beat him on the outside. He's got a wonderful left-handed flick offload. Just a super-duper dangerous player, and obviously he's a strong guy. So I think based on how he's kind of trended recently, I reckon he might be out there in quite a few waivers. Really, really like him as a pickup. I know for a fact there's a couple of people who are listening to this podcast who have seen Laffey in their team and dropped him just before kickoff last week, and now he's out on waivers and would not be feeling too good about things. So I think Tim Laffey, I'm a big believer of him. I think he's a really talented player, and he'd be a waiver claim for mine. On to the next game of the round is the Raiders at home to the Knights. So big news out of the Raiders is obviously Joseph Tarpany with that thumb. It's just been plaguing him for season on season now. He's someone that I owned last year and really loved having him as a dual player in the front row and also in the second row. I really, as an owner last year, I kind of wasn't as high on him compared to other people I know in the industry, just because, the RFOF duel being lost was one thing, but having owned him last year, I did get a newfound kind of understanding for just how reliant he was on attacking stats. I know there was quite a few games where he would just kind of do something right towards the end of the match with like 10 to go or 5 to go, and kind of he'd finish with an all right score, but that base that he presents, it's super low, and obviously there's the suspension risk and now the injury risk. So look, Tarpany owners, you're really happy that it's only come out to be a 1 to 2 week injury. Could be back next week, but I guess he is what he is, Tarpany now. He's an injury-prone player with suspension risk, and that's just kind of who he is. But he isn't out and out gun when he's on. So, with that being said, the big beneficiary in terms of this team list is Ryan Sutton getting a start at lock. I don't really know what to think of this news in terms of if you can really take much from it. I was kind of expecting Soliola to get that spot or even start on the edge. It's probably a little bit of a downtick to John Bateman. Obviously, you'd rather him playing 80 minutes at lock rather than 80 minutes in the second row. But in terms of Sutton, I really think he's just like a glorified front rower in that position. So not someone that I'd be sticking my nose out for to go and put a waiver claim in for. As for the Knights, they've got the same old team from last week. And obviously, with the Newcastle Knights, I think the real news is just how they're going to keep using these forwards. I'm kind of a bit bewildered to how James Gavet is the guy that keeps getting a start there. just after the weekend. I think Guerra, Barnett, and Sesi all on the bench, at least in my eyes, are better players than Gave, and probably also Glaspie even. I'm not a huge Tim Glaspie guy. I just don't think he's too much to really write home about. And he come crashing back down to earth last week after a big score which included a try the week prior. But look, in terms of minutes, like with the way Glaspie's going, I just don't think that he can really prove to be a Supercoach relevant player with 33 and then the 44 minutes the week before. It's just not enough minutes for a guy like him. So not much interest in Timmy Glaspie. Next game of the round is the Parramatta Eels at home to the Sydney Roosters. Now, for the Eels, Penny Terapo has been named in the 19 jersey, which was a bit of a shame to some, especially guys who were a bit short in the forwards, given the couple of injuries to Tamalolo and Tarping, like I mentioned before. I think there was a few people that were keen. I know I was certainly one of them on Penny Terapo if he got the starting spot, but obviously he's ticked a few people off with his behaviour. He's still getting punished by Brad Arthur there, you can see. So he's a bit of a disappointment in terms of what could have been a potential waiver. It's also quite interesting to note that Sivo kept his spot, but I think when all things considered, the Roosters coming to town, you're not really starting any Eels backs outside of Ferguson and Gutherson, I don't think. And that probably also goes for Moses and Dylan Brown, even though they both look pretty good to start the year and it's been scoring okay. As for the Roosters, look, you've got Matt Ikuvalu who comes in. That was kind of expected, I suppose, but there was also that outside chance. I know if you were a Crichton owner, Chris and I discussed him last week as someone that he is quite down on. He called him as a bust pre-season and has kind of been proven right so far, 2 weeks in. As a kind of Crichton truther, I was really, really hoping that Orbison would get pushed out to the centres and maybe Manu pushed out to the wing to give Crichton the start there. But Ikuvalu's really proved himself in the lower grades and is an up-and-coming player. And he's been pretty safe, especially in the World Club Challenge and things like that. So he's safe enough, and he's probably worth a free agent pickup in the matchup against the Eels, where I do expect the Roosters to run away with a few points. Next match of the round is also on Saturday, 2:00. Manly Sea Eagles at home to the Warriors. Great news for Tom Trbojevic owners here with Tommy Turbo back. But I guess in terms of the waiver wire, you've got Adam Fanua-Blake back. So if he didn't get waived last week and you've copped a few injuries in your forwards, definitely go and spend a claim to get him in. But in terms of that, I kind of thought Curtis Sirinen might have missed this game as well due to copping a few knocks on the weekend. But he's kept his spot there, which is good to see for Curtis Sirinen owners. But there's not too much to really write home about in terms of the Manly lineup. On to the Warriors. Now, for the Warriors, they've kept an unchanged lineup also, which is a bit of a shame because I've kind of, I guess, raised the flag and held my head up high for Isaiah Papali'i. I've kind of stuck my head out for him, spending a number 2 waiver claim on him in the preseason when he got dropped. I expected big things for Isaiah Papali'i, and I was really, really hoping I'd see him named in that back row, either in the second row or in the lock spot. So to see Lachlan Burr there was a bit of a dagger, I must admit. So I'm always hopeful that Papali'i might get a late call up to start, but as for now, I guess that makes him a really, really sneaky free agent pickup if he's been dropped, or if he does get dropped tomorrow morning, then you might be able to look to pick him up a little bit later on. Other than that, though, there's not too much for the Warriors, who had a bit of a down week last week. You might even say they crashed back to earth a little bit after the dizzy heights against the Bulldogs. The 4:30 game on Saturday is the North Queensland Cowboys at home to the Cronulla Sharks. So, as I mentioned before, I don't need to keep on harping on about the Taumalolo injury. Obviously, if you're a Taumalolo owner, it's absolutely brutal to lose a first-round pick or early second if in a couple of leagues where he may have slipped. I still don't know how in my league, who I do consider to be, I wouldn't say it's an experts league, but it's pretty hotly contested, and guys know their shit. So for Taumalolo to fall to, I think it was 13th or 14th overall in our league was absolutely insane. I know it's really early days in the year, but someone took Arrow over Taumalolo in our draft, and he said, this Arrow is going to be better, simply put. And then this happens. I mean, Arrow goes out and scores 111, and Taumalolo gets injured for 6 to 10. So don't know how he did that, but that's how Taumalolo fell so far in our league. And geez, I'm still in absolute disbelief that he's got that right so far. So good on him. But yeah, in terms of waivers, look, Tamari Martin at fullback, I said last week, I think he is a much, much better player in both real life and fantasy at fullback. And I think Paul Green's probably started to see that because Jordan Kahu hasn't offered anything at fullback over the last few games. And that's despite the fact that, Hodges gave him that Dally M point, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Jake Clifford getting the start at 5'8" is also rather sneaky. In normal circumstances, I'd be absolutely mega, mega keen on Clifford. But the fact that Kahu has kept his spot in the 17 really tempers my expectations because that means that Kahu will keep kicking. And without Kahu, if Clifford was going to take it, I'd be right up and about that. But unfortunately not. And as a result, I don't think I'd spend a top 6 waiver. I don't know. I probably wouldn't even spend a waiver on Clifford unless I was desperate as. I think he's probably a free agent stash at best at the moment. But he's a really talented player. So, look, I wouldn't begrudge anyone who did feel the need to spend a claim there. Other than that, for the Cowboys, look, I know Opachic's gone. So, he's out of the side, which brings old Benny Hampton into the team, which is good for the Ben Hampton believers. He's not someone I'm mega keen on without Thurston there, but he definitely offers a lot more than Opachic does, and he's pretty lightning fast. So he's probably not the worst to look at. And I believe he's got the dual flexibility as well this year, which is an added bonus there with Benny Hampton. I'll just double check. I believe he's CTW fullback. Yep. CTW fullback. So that's a nice little duel to have at your disposal there. As for the Cronulla Sharks, look, Sione Katoa went absolutely bonkers on the weekend, but he's still not someone that's really on my radar. I don't really rate him. I know that going against that SJ right-hand side attack is very dangerous to say that you're going to go against it and you don't really believe it, given what, only 2 weeks in, it's really showed Nakora, Dugan, and also Katoa. They've all been absolutely red hot outside SJ. So I guess it is a bit of a big call, but I was not a huge Sione Katoa guy. I don't think he's got the base that I like in a CTW. Sure, he's got the upside, but I mean, geez, he's not going to go up against Branko Lee every week. So he's not someone that I'm overly keen on. Moving on to the next game, the Penny Panthers at home to the Melbourne Storm. I'm a bit worried about the Panthers in this game, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of the Fisher-Harris, Frank Winterstein, Hami Sele back row. Obviously, Isaiah Yeo is a huge loss there. I really do worry that the Storm are just going to absolutely roll over this Panthers pack. Look, Regan Campbell-Gillard and Tarmow, they're probably going to get decent minutes again. I know as a Tarmow owner, I picked him up as a free agent the other week. And, to see him get the 56 minutes to score himself a around about the 60 points. Just watching the game live, it looked like he was getting through an absolute mountain of work, and I believe he had 40 tackles, so he was absolutely killing it. I'll just correct that. Yeah, 58 points in 57 minutes. So he's had 60 in 57 minutes the last 2 weeks, and I really can see that continuing with that current Panthers team. It's like we know what Hame Sele is, and Frank Winstein's not much chop. So they're going to need to do a lot there to even be competitive against the Storm, I feel, because I just haven't really seen much. Like, I've watched a lot of football. I watched all the games, but I haven't seen much that I like from the Panthers to start the year. I really do hold concerns that they might not be the team that people kind of dubbed them to be. I think there might be a few underlying issues there that, sure, it might take them a few weeks and they might correct it, but they just haven't got the talent there at the moment with these injuries that they've copped. So it's going to be a bit of a tough time for the Panthers for the next couple of weeks. Now, I think that kind of goes to show with the Wagner Blake scores, to be honest. He's really underperformed, and he's probably not a bad buy low target. But I actually do think he'll be an even better buy low target after this week, because I don't think he's going to score much against the Storm. Now, for the Storm themselves, look, Dale Finucane had a huge game. He'd probably be owned in most leagues, but I know in some 8-teamers he's probably going to be out there because he's not an overly sexy player. He's really your meat and potato style. So he's probably someone worth a look at. Suliasi Vunivalu, I'll probably say this 3 or 4 times a season when he does score his big weeks. Sell him. Sell him now. He's a try scorer, we know that, but he has no base, and he's just had the 3 tries. So try and turn him into something. I don't really know what you'd be able to get for him, but just go out and float it out there. Vunivalu for Mansour, Vunivalu for Kotrick, Vunivalu for those sorts of wingers who haven't done anything yet that you kind of know will do something eventually. And Vunivalu is going to really, really require those tries. So I'd much rather those other players rest of season, that's for sure. The last game on the Saturday, I'm on to the Sunday game now, which is the Tigers at home to the Bulldogs. I'll start with the Bulldogs first because it's not very often you get news like this with Reece Martin recalled onto the bench. Look, even though he's been put onto the bench, he is still the number 1 waiver wire pickup just for what he could be. There is just so much potential in Reece Martin when he plays, given how good a goal kicker he is. I don't care that he's on the bench. You spend the waiver because he could just be so good if and when he does start. Also, Nick Meaney getting the fullback spot. He's well worth a waiver claim as well. We don't know too much about him in terms of NRL ability, but he's definitely had a couple of good games back in the New South Wales Cup, which has been promising. So Nick Meaney is someone to definitely take a flyer on if you're a bit short at fullback, because he is fullback only. Last kind of news and notes for the Bulldogs is, look, it's pretty bad news for Will Hopewadi back to centre. It just really, really kills his value. He's still a startable player, don't get me wrong, but he has not got the upside in the centres as what he had at fullback. So it's a bit of a shame for Hopewadi owners. And last of all, the Kerrod Holland truthers. I don't classify myself as a Holland truther, even though I own him in my league. I only took him because I wanted a backup hooker. And my honest thoughts about Holland are he's just not a very good first grade player. So I hate having guys in my team where I don't really believe in the talent of a guy, and he's certainly one of them. I know his stats toward the end of last year kind of made me go, oh, geez, he was actually really, really good in terms of Supercoach scoring. That was without the kicking, as everyone tells you. But at the end of the day, he's just not that good of a player in terms of first grade. So I would highly consider cutting him this week, or, you can hold on to him, I guess, if you've got nothing else doing. But, geez, there's not much to like there with Reece Martin about to come back and take the kicking off him whenever he's on the field. So he's not really someone I'm interested in. It's almost like a hands-off all Bulldogs backs until further notice, really. On to the Tigers. Oh, sorry, can't go on to the Tigers. I missed another huge one, was CHN. Holy crap. Harawira Naira, dual second row CTW. They paid big money to get him across from Penrith over the off-season. He's got the starting number 12, and he's a really good player when he gets the minutes. Dean Play has shown time and time again he plays both of his second rowers for 80 minutes. He did it with Fatala Mariner. He did it with Reece Martin last year. And now Harawira Naira has got that spot, and all signs to point to him being an 80-minute back rower who you can play in your CTW. For mine, he's the only player this week outside of the obvious Robbie Farah, if somehow he was not owned already, which I would highly, highly doubt. But unless he is out there, pretty much every single person will be targeting Reece Martin and or Harawira Naira as one or two waiver wire claims. And I think it's pretty much clear-cut in terms of those two players. For the Tigers now, I can go on to them. Look, Mahi Whenua owners, congratulations. You've got another week out of him. Time is really going to tell what the hell is going on with David Nofaluma. If the Tigers keep winning, which they will because they're against the Bulldogs at home, I'm starting to get – this is where I'd love to have Chris here just to get his opinions, because he's a Nofaluma owner in our league. And each week that goes by with the Tigers keeping on winning, I would hate to know how Nofaluma, what can I say his name tonight? Nofaluma owners would be feeling. I really think that you'd be starting to get a little bit panicky. I've always been a big believer that he'd be the first one back in, he'd be back into the side with that spot. But look, Whenua hasn't done much wrong the last few weeks. He's just doing his job. Tigers are playing well. They're winning well. And it looks like it's going to continue. So I really do think that Nofaluma is going to be at least another week away. And as of right now, it's Mahi Whenua's position until he loses it, I feel. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Whether that means that Nofaluma is a buy low opportunity or not, I don't really know how you'd really describe him at the moment. He's almost a sell high, which is weird to say for someone who hasn't played, but you know, it might be one of those situations where you're just trying to get whatever you can for the guy. Because similar to what we said last week with Josh Papali, with his minutes and all that sort of stuff. But obviously with Tarpany getting injured, things could change there. But other than that, look, the Tigers are pretty much what they are. On to the 5:10 p.m. Sunday game, which is the last game of the round, is South Sydney at home to the Gold Coast Titans. Now, for South Sydney, GI has been named, but there's pretty big speculation that he's probably going to miss this match. As I said before, it was just really sad to see him having a run around on the weekend. So I'd expect a bit of a reshuffle there with the potential of Corey Allen to maybe sneak in from the extended bench, but I guess time will tell. I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is that if you are an Inglis owner and you are relying on him to start, you need to make plans now, because being the last game of the round, there's going to be players on your bench who are going to lock themselves out as their game plays. And if Inglis is a late withdrawal, you might get stuck with not many options. And look, to be honest, he's going to drop Inglis if he's out, and you get yourself in that position, because he's looked absolutely terrible. But look, in terms of waivers, there's not much here other than Braden Burns if he got missed the other week, if he snuck through the keeper. But I'd say he'd be owned now, given the fact we've had a couple of bouts of waivers. As for the Titans, they've kept a pretty similar team. Branko Lee and Brian Kelly didn't look that good in defence on the weekend, so that right-hand side, that Braden Burns, left-hand side, Campbell Graham and Braden Burns could have a nice little week out again if Branko keeps shooting in like he has been. Hang on, no, I get that wrong. Gagai is actually on the right, isn't he? Because Branko Lee is on the left. So it would be Gagai and Inglis up against Kelly and Lee. So I guess that means Gagai might be the one to potentially benefit from Branko's mistakes. Look, this Titans team, it's in flux, I do believe. Other than Arrow, everyone else didn't really do much. I don't really understand the signing of Shannon Boyd. Kevin Proctor doesn't offer much. And, yeah, it just is what it is. Not much to do with it in terms of waivers. Other than if Ash Taylor owners start to get a little bit panicky, I guess you could see him getting dropped pretty soon by his owners. So in terms of overall waivers for this week, I guess we'll just kind of recap. So if it was me, I think I'd probably have it Reece Martin 1, CHN very close second, kind of 1A, 1B. Probably a slight bit of an advantage to Reece Martin, but I wouldn't be devastated to get CHN. Number 3, T. Mari Martin for sure, just at fullback there. Number 4, I would have Jake Clifford, I think. And probably number 5, I'd probably still take a punt on Isaiah Papali'i because I believe he will come good eventually. But in terms of misses, look, I'm not going to get sucked into Ryan Sutton. He's not really someone that I'd be interested in just looking at the waivers. And then that goes for Mitchell Orbison too, even though he's named on the bench. Sorry, to start in the second row for the Roosters. So, yeah, that pretty much sums up the waivers. So, yeah, go and get those claims in and set your alarm for 4 a.m. if you're that way inclined. Just to finish off the show, I might just kind of touch on a couple of players that I think are interesting at the moment and just kind of give my general thoughts and advice on what I view them to be rest of season. And the first one is the name on everyone's lips, really, in terms of Supercoach circles, and that's Robbie Farah. Back-to-back hundreds is obviously great. The guy in our league who owns Farah is also the guy that drafted Cook. So if you're in a position like that, you've hit the absolute jackpot in terms of trade value. You'd almost, well, you obviously you're going to get a lot more for Damien Cook, but you're going to go out there and try and sell Farah for whatever you can get. If you can't get much for him, you might then go back and have a go at Cook. But personally, I wouldn't recommend something like that. I don't know about Farah. He looks in great shape, but someone that old playing that many minutes, Father Time will probably catch up to him by the time the year is out. With that being said, though, look, if he keeps playing well, then obviously he's going to keep going good. He's going to keep scoring really, really well. Josh Hodgson's the next name on the list as a bit of a fallen gun through a couple of weeks. You have to be a little bit concerned just based on the 2 sub-50 scores. Well, first one was sub-50. The second one was sub-35. So really, really concerning in terms of his output. He's not a huge base guy, but look, the attack's going to come. Canberra are going to have better days. And when their attack's on, he's going to be the main reason. So you draft him to be an upside hooker, wait it out, give yourself some time. And I wouldn't be hitting the panic stations yet. Next one is a guy that I actually own, Connor Watson, for the Knights. Look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried about Connor Watson. He hasn't been as involved as I was really hoping he would be at fullback for the Knights. I think through a couple of weeks, it's been pretty clear to see that that Watson and Ponga have got some growing pains there. It doesn't look smooth. He's not being used on the sweep. He's still getting put in positions to get support play tries. He's always buzzing around the ball, but he's not someone that's having what I kind of was hoping he would do in terms, like, I thought he'd be a bit like Nickel Clockstad. He'd just have a lot of those carries because he just take a lot of kick returns back and get himself really involved. But he's not having bulk runs, and with that, he's not getting many tackle busts. He did get unlucky last week, I will say. He had a disallowed try, which I thought was a bit iffy due to an obstruction to it was on Tamo. I thought Tamo milked it quite a bit. So Connor missed out on a try there. And he also passed the ball to Edric Lee when bloody Maloney knocked it out of his hand over the line. So as bad as it was, seeing a score of 17, if it was any other week, he could have had a try with a line break try, plus also a try assist, line break assist. So I guess they're the breaks of Supercoach. As an owner, he's someone that I am not actively trying to hit the panic button on, but you kind of can't be selling him now because he's got no value, given where you probably drafted him. I know he went round 4 in some leagues. I took him at the back end of. I took him with the last pick of round 4 in my league, or the start of 5, whatever it was. It was that turn, 4-5 turn. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, he's somebody that I think you just gotta hold on to because as I said, things fall his way. You could have a different outcome. And the last one, lots and lots of people are going to want to know about Crichton again. Now he's pushed back to the bench. It's starting to get a little bit concerning. I'm not going to lie. I do love Crichton. Obviously, as a Rooster supporter, I didn't expect him to be on the bench for this long. The fact he started last week in the rain he didn't really set the world on fire in terms of his scoring, which was a bit disappointing. And for some reason, they're just really managing his body. Jake Friend's playing big minutes. How long that lasts for, who knows? But it's really, really tough when you spend a round 1 pick or an early round 2 pick on somebody like that. And he just keeps on doing not much at all. But that's pretty much it in terms of the guys that I think are interesting to discuss in terms of their trade value. There's not really many players that I'm actively selling high on this week. I know a lot of people would say Pangai Jr., and I get that. I understand why you'd be saying to sell to be the Pangai. But to be honest, in your front row, it's so hard to get guys who have upside outside of Fafita and obviously Fafita, Surgis, Clemmer, Tapau. Those guys are elite for a reason, but if you haven't got one of those, or even if you have one and you're trying to find an FRF2 who has some form of upside, you're looking at the FRFs who could score tries or get attacking stats, and TPJ's top of that list, I feel, and probably the only other guys that have really got that much attacking potential in them are guys like Josh Papali, Paul Vaughan, Nelson Asofa Solomona, funnily enough, but he just hasn't got much base. But yeah, TPJ, while he's starting, people might think he's getting more minutes. His minutes were down last week, but the Broncos were in more of a game. I think he was just getting rested given how dominant he was. I just think TPJ is just made for Supercoach. So I wouldn't be selling him as an owner, which I am. Not unless you got knocked away with or blown away with an offer. But he's somebody probably worth holding on to. Last guy is, Taumalolo. I mean, what do you do? If you're a Taumalolo owner, I mean, the poor bloke in our league who's got Taumalolo, he's 0-2. So that's going to be really difficult to see what you do in a situation like that. Obviously, if you're 2-0, you probably hold him, but 0-2, man, you kind of got to do something. You can't just let it pass you by. I know he's an out-and-out gun, and you took him for a reason, but surely someone's going to give you something for him. But it's a bit sad. Anyway, that's the way the Supercoach circle goes. Who knows? The guy you're playing this week might be the guy that cops an in-game injury or something, so you might get a win. Who knows? Anyway, guys and girls, thanks so much for listening to us again. I know it was probably a bit of a dry old episode with me just here, but appreciate your support. Hit me up on Twitter at NRL Supercoach Talk Draft for any start-sit questions or trade advice. I'm always trying to do my best to answer those, or the you can go to the website NRL Supercoach Talk and search for draft in the search bar. And we do have a pre-season draft chat that gets checked over throughout the year. So appreciate listening, guys. And Chris and I'll be back again next week. Cheers.